Hello, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur for your instant post-match reaction. And it's a bit of a difficult one. I think I've just seen a classical tweet there. Someone has said, only at Tottenham do you expect to go and get hammered and be disappointed you've lost at the end of the day. But you know what? I think it's a hard one, this one, Jack, because there's a lot to be proud of. There's a lot of positives to take from the performance in general. We've seen a good, cohesive team performance there. But there's still some warning
Yeah.
signs, and ultimately disappointed that we sort of gave it away. It was in our hands.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot of lessons learned, but it's also a lot of positives to take. I think we're also dealing with the immediacy of it all when you end up feeling like you played well despite maybe the initial expectations. The initial expectations were like, this is going to be a huge momentous task. Like this, it's going to take a lot to sort of be competitive in this game, let alone win this game. And then you end up following through with that and like sort of goes, best case scenario, like you find yourselves 2-0 up, feeling like the better team for nearly 70 minutes. And then all of a sudden you cough it up and you end up giving that team that leg back into it. And then you actually do get punished, for it by giving up the second goal. So then you just kind of are living this whole like, oh, but we played well, maybe despite expectations. Oh, there's the positives. But then you also struggle to really get, really amped up by it because at the end of the day, you still lost a game and you still lost the chance to win another trophy. And we were like, getting ready to be happy clapping and jumping for joy at that opportunity
Had
for
the
another
bucket hat on.
trophy. So yeah, the bucket hat on, exactly. So I mean, the way I'd put it, Dave, is what's difficult about it is we are still living in the immediate moment. I think 24,
Mm.
48 hours later, you would probably look back on it maybe a little less emotional. I think everyone should feel emotional after this. Like it's, we're all human at the end of the day and we're all living in that intense, moment of it. But it's a lot of lessons learned, but then a lot of positives at the same time. So that's what makes it complicated, really.
Mm. No, look, I think there's a lot of positives you can take from the game. At the end of the day, we competed with probably the best team in world football for 75, 80 minutes. We gave them a good game of football. It was a good cohesive performance. I think Romero had a good game as captain, which we're going to touch on as well. So I think there's a lot of positives to take. But I think some of the same old problems maybe are rearing its head, which we'll save towards the end, because I do want to speak about some more positive things first. I just think where the disappointment really comes in tonight, Jack, is the fact that I just think we basically gift wrapped that Super Cup final, that trophy,
Yeah,
and gave it
yeah,
to PSG.
yeah.
The last 10 minutes, 15 minutes was really sort of disappointing. It petered out what could have been a great magical night for Tottenham and its fans, and it's just disappointed that we sort of gift wrapped it. Like, I think the opportunity was there to take advantage of the fitness levels, and ultimately we didn't do that. But look, Jack, going into the game, Thomas Frank surprised many fans. He went with a back five today. He changed it up from what we've seen in preseason, where we regularly played a back four. I mean, how do you think that worked today? It was a brave call by Thomas Frank. Postecoglou tried to do it against Everton, and we slapped up 3-0 by half time, and it largely backfired. How do you think it went today?
You know this about me, Dave. I'm a bit of a sicko. I enjoy defensive football, and I think the back five worked to a plum. I think it worked to a T. I think you ended up really frustrating the likes of Kavicha Kvaratskhelia, who, in my opinion, is a world-class winger, who I've said has been a world-class winger for 4 years now. It's only been the last 1 or 2 years that people have copped onto it. He looked very frustrated and was taken off even early by Luis Enrique. Jet Spence, Pedro Porro, everybody in the midfield were locking him up. Ousmane Dembele was being forced to drop really deep in order to get onto the ball. You had as well, the likes of Desiree Doué, who was playing this hybrid role of sort of floating to the winger positions, but also playing in midfield. He was struggling against it. The only guy that maybe was getting some enjoyment out of it, but not even that much, I think, really, to be honest, was Barcola out on the right against Pedro Porro and Danzo. I think that back five really actually stifled and frustrated what is, in my opinion, a world-class forward line. I think it's the regeneration of Messi, Neymar, Suarez. Luis Enrique was the manager to create that forward line, which was the best forward line I'd ever seen in my lifetime, which was Messi, Neymar, and Suarez and that Barcelona team. I think he's done the same thing with that PSG team in the same exact in this last year. And then I think Thomas Frank, by going with the back five, is just admitted, it's like, listen, do you really expect, our defenders to be able to just handle these guys one-on-one for 90 minutes? They're going to need help they're going to need to double up on them. They're going to need support. And I think it really worked and it really helps. But then the thing is, with that 3-man midfield, it required them, though, to not just sit in the whole time. They had to be brave and sort of press. They had to be brave and win some of those passes into midfield. Pop Matasar, the amount of interceptions he had, the amount of times that he broke up play. Bentancur, the same. Joao Palhinha, there were some times when he had guys running right at him one-on-one. He would stick a foot out, win the ball. There were so many good turnovers that we had in that game that I mean, well, you have another question on this, so I don't want to spoil it, but there were so many good turnovers in good areas, I think, from that formation and that shape that Thomas Frank set us up in, that I wish we probably could have done a bit better with, because some of the turnovers were really good and good advantageous areas to potentially punish PSG. But I think the back five, I'm one of the only few people in the world that could say I enjoy back five every now and again. You know, it's one of those things. I like defensive football, and I like a bit of ugly, pragmatic, defensive minded sort of, things. I don't like some of the buzzwords that describe it. It is ugly. It is hard to watch. I happen to be one of those guys that, really enjoys it. And I think it actually worked to a T today. And I think it was the right move by Thomas Frank.
100%. Look, it was a ballsy call, to go in there and change it up, something that we haven't really played in over the course of preseason, but ultimately it worked. My biggest concern about it going in was initially when I see that, we're showing PSG a hell of a lot of respect. Because me, going into the game, I wanted us to take advantage of the fitness levels.
Back five always indicates that you're going to show them respect. Yeah.
And I thought, PSG would come into this game a bit rusty. It would take them a while to find their feet, and it panned out that way. So I wanted us to be brave and go for it. And where I think Thomas Frank deserves a lot of respect is he's proven tonight he's not married to one formation or one style or one philosophy. He's shown that he can change it up and still go and try and affect games, which is, I think, massive for Tottenham Hotspur moving forward. We're not a good enough team to go, this is the way we play and this is what we want to do. And neither of the board going to back that style or that philosophy. So you do need a bit of ingenuity from the manager. And fair play to Thomas Frank. He made it work and we went at them. And where I think he deserves a lot of credit, he went up with a 3 against Bayern Munich. Brave, probably the right game to try that out in the preseason game and get your answers. It didn't work. We got slapped up. Defensively, we got slapped up. So he goes, okay, well, I'm not going to repeat that mistake. It's not good enough, that front line. So I'm going to have to find a way around it, but still make us competitive. And he done that today. So fair play to Thomas Frank. For 75 minutes, it absolutely worked a treat. It kept us in a game where we had no... Look, many people coming into this were expecting Tottenham to be set, lose this by 4, 5, 6 goals today. We're expecting PSG to play us off the park. And it didn't pan out like that. We shocked a lot of people. So fair play to Thomas Frank on that. And it just goes to show that I think what we've seen is, against maybe some of the weaker teams, we will play a back four and try and be more attacking. But against the bigger teams, we will look to maybe play this formation. But I think what is critical to this working is that midfield tree like you spoke about. I think he's found in these games the combination of the midfield tree he needs to go with. Bentancur, Paulini, and Sarr, because it allows them to go and turn over ball. They're all physical. They want to get stuck in. They're not lazy. They want to go and chase that ball. They want to go and get it. And in possession, they were tight enough as well. And what I've seen from pre-season, Jack, is that I think the base of whether it's a back five or a back four, Thomas Frank has an absolutely solid. He's got a solid foundation to work off. But where the same old problems keep rearing their head is going forward. And look, that's something. Look, we'll leave that for a minute, because I do want to talk about Romero since we're talking about the back line. Look, it was his first game as club captain today. He was named as club captain moving forward. Personally, I think it's the right decision. I'm a big fan of it. I thought he was outstanding today. Not only did he get his goal, a great header, by the way, he's done everything you're taught. Time the run, make double movements. He done that. And then also head the ball down into ground. It's difficult for a goalkeeper to save. And he done everything textbook in terms of that finish. But defensively, bar the last goal for Gonçalo Ramos, he was in there clearing absolutely everything away. How do you think he led the team today?
I think he led the team well. You could tell from even the get-go when they were walking out the tunnel, he sort of had this, we know he's a mean player, nasty player, but he's sort of the way that he was kind of looking, he looked serious, the way that he was speaking to the players before the game, the way he spoke to the players before they entered the tunnel going into the second half, right? When they were about to have the meeting with Thomas Frank at halftime, he's motivating the players. I think he's showing that leadership, that sort of nastiness that we've been needing in a Spurs captain in a long time, because you could maybe argue that in the past, the likes of Harry Kane, the likes of Sonny, these guys, they maybe didn't have that in them. That ability to sort of lay into players, that ability to sort of be that tough guy that you can maybe get motivation off of. And then also playing in the center of a back three. I'm not sure how often we will see that under Thomas Frank, but in the center of a back three, it reminded me of where Romero got his career started. He played in the center of a back three under Atalanta with the likes of, I think it was Gasperini, right? That's a very famous manager from Atalanta, and he did very well in that formation. And I think he was probably given more of a defensive role where he was there to mop up anything that came in there. And I think he did it for the most part. And I'm not even sure if it was his responsibility for the goal that Gonçalo Ramos scored, So I think it was an excellent performance from Romero. And then also to score the second goal was almost written in the stars. It was written in the script. And it's just such a shame that it didn't end up in a trophy lift for him, because I was so ready to see Romero lift those armpits.
Yeah, for me, I described it in the pregame as like a Graham Roberts sort of captain, and I've seen that today with the goal as well. And for me, I think he led the team outstandingly well. He's a guy, like you said, at halftime, players maybe getting a bit hyped up. Romero's in their ear, stay focused, nothing's won yet. And I think, for me, I feel okay in his hands moving forward. I don't think he's going to allow standards to slip and stuff like that. Whereas I think Sonny might have, because he just wants to be everyone's friend. Whereas I think Romero will put people in place. And look, perfect transition. I think, no, actually, we won't go there. We'll save the substitutions for another minute as well. I want to talk about another positive in today's game, Jack, is the set pieces. Look, it's something that I've said I think he could implement from Brentford and implement at Tottenham very handily. Across pre-season, a lot of our goals have actually come from set pieces. 2 goals today come from set pieces and being awkward. Danzo's long throws also caused a lot of trouble. I mean, how good is it to see us cause such a threat from set pieces? Because when you actually look at us match up against that PSG team, we had big, strong, physical lads in there. It looks like we could do that to most teams.
I think unless I'm wrong, I think we scored from 2 big launches from Vicario where we earned a free kick, got ourselves a bit of time to rest, and then just sort of threw everyone forward, and Vicario then just pumped it long, and then we just created some chaos from there. And I think if you're someone like maybe Dave here, who doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in the forward line to be able to score goals on a regular basis, in a way, sometimes managers are asked, well, how can you figure out different ways to score then? I think we showed that tonight. It was like, well, if the forward line can't necessarily score goals on their own when they are given chances and breakaways, how else are you going to score? And it's like, well, be a matter of set pieces, and it'd be a matter of just sort of different ways that you can just sort of figure out to just create a bit of chaos. And I think that's what we did today. And it's funny that they both came from big Vicario launches of the ball, and it worked to a plum. Or maybe the other one might have been from Pedro Porro clipping it towards the back post. I think Pedro Porro clipping it to the back post for Romero to score. I'm forgetting how it worked out on the second goal. But regardless, he showed that set pieces are a way that we can score goals in case that the forward line is not capable of doing it on their own.
For me as well, I'm a big fan of just route one from set pieces. This flapping about, passing, trying to, pass through the lines. One thing that agitated me under Ange, just get the ball in the box from a set piece, send people after it, and that's exactly what Thomas Frank has brought to Tottenham. None of this flapping about, passing it, let's retain possession, put it in the box, send the big guys up and go after it, and we're getting our rewards from it. Also, defensively, we've been absolutely brilliant from defending set pieces. That's been a huge Achilles heel of Tottenham in years gone by. So I think fair play to Thomas Frank, and I think it's a huge positive. However, where it become Achilles heel is if we solely rely on them. Ideally, we want to be able to be a menace from set pieces, but also be able to rip teams from open play. You want to be able to just put teams under pressure from all aspects of your forward play. But right now, one is lacking, and we probably paid the price for it today to a certain degree. Not being able to create. You score 1 or 2 off the breakaways. Because, we were sitting there when we were 2-0 up, and I remember saying to you, if we were better on the breakaways in the first half, it could be 3 or 4 up. The game could have been killed. 2-0, like I've always said, is the most dangerous scoreline of football. And it proved that today to a large degree. So although the set pieces are a huge problem, we really have to sort out the lack of creativity and goals from open play. But Jack, let's move on to the substitutions before we get into the last talking point, which is how toothless we are going forward. Look, the substitutions, I mean, you look at our substitutions we took off Kudos, we took off Paulinia, we took off Richarlison, all players, and Papa Matasar, all players that were having a huge impact on the game. We brought on Solanke, Tel, Gray, and Bergval. You look at PSG, they brought on Lee Kang, Hang in, Gonzalo Ramos, Fabian Ruiz. And for me, this is where the game was won and lost today. It's where PSG won the game, and it's where we lost the game. Their substitutions and their bench impacted the game. Ours didn't. Ours made us weaker. I mean, but where does the blame lie? Because it seems to be a bit controversial. You've got people going after Frank saying there's no way he needed to make them substitutions. He should have held out. But then you've got people like me that going, you've got to protect your better players. You know, modern day football is all about managing minutes. People blame Postecoglou for running players into the ground last season, that he should have protected them more. Frank does that. Now he's getting ridiculed for it. I don't quite understand it. For me, I think it comes down to two things. I think it comes down to the subs not having the hunger or the appetite and probably sulking that they didn't start and that Frank switched up the formation, which meant some of them forward players had to be on the bench. But also twofold. We brought in Matista last January. Didn't make a difference. Could have closed down the first shot. Today didn't. Could have closed down and helped Jed Spence get out there. Helped Jed Spence for the cross out that side for the second goal. He didn't. And at the end of the day, I keep saying this, you buy brand average players, it's going to cost you. And today, signing Matista, which we should never have done in the first place, cost us on the biggest stage. So for me, I actually think the blame should go towards the players that came off the bench and he owed the starting 11 a massive apology, and Thomas Frank, but also towards the chairman. I think if we would have brought in more strength and depth quicker over this summer, it would have made a difference with bringing better players off the bench. And maybe we would have got over the line today. So for me, that's where the blame should go. Them two people. Thomas Frank should be the last person to get the blame.
I think it shows also the difference in quality that both teams had off the bench. Like Luis Enrique took off world-class forward line players and then brought in really good midfield technical players, and then all of a sudden, and then brought on a classical number 9 in Gonzalo Ramos. And then all of a sudden they had a very different dynamic that Spurs had to eventually react to, because I think Jason Bell said in the comments at one point, he said that Spurs were starting to suffer, a bit more once he made those changes, Luis Enrique. It's not like Thomas Frank made those substitutions before Luis Enrique made his. Enrique made his first. Spurs started to concede some chances here and there because they were getting their foot on the ball a bit more, PSG, because they brought on more midfielders to sort of control possession and put us under pressure. And then Thomas Frank at one point must have felt like, listen, like I need guys that need to come onto the pitch that are fresh legs that can put pressure on those midfielders, make it difficult for them to be able to pick out these passes that are making it hard on us to be able to defend. And the frustration is that the guys that he picked to sort of do that weren't able to, for some reason. I don't know why. I think it was down to motivation and down to maybe a lack of fitness on their own part, probably more motivation than really lack of fitness, because they were only on the pitch for 20 minutes or so. I think he got really let down by some of the guys that he brought on today. But I think that's what it was, is that he felt like Luis Enrique made a good tactical change, went for more technical minded players to put us under pressure, control possession even more. And then they started to ask more questions of that defense because of it, because they had more of the ball. And then he probably felt like, well, if I put on these guys with 20 minutes to go, surely they should have the legs to be able to put pressure on these players to sort of make life difficult for them to be able to carve us open. Most of the players that he brought on weren't able to do that. Solanke, coming back from injury, wasn't really able to do it. But then again, maybe you give him more of a pass because, he is coming back from injury. Matisse Tell doesn't have any excuse and was by far the worst player on the pitch that he brought on. Archie Gray, I'll be honest, couldn't get his foot on the ball, couldn't come out and pressure the ball either. Bergvall was a little bit better than the rest, but is it really saying much if you compare him to what Pop Montasar is doing? And again, the people that used to rape Lucas Bergvall over Pop Montasar, I just really have to question that after Pop Montasar's performance today. An absolute warrior out there. And then even Bentancur in like the final minutes of the game was pressing more than I saw Bergvall or Archie Gray doing in that midfield. So it really did show that Thomas Frank just wanted Bergvall, Archie Gray, Tell, Solanke to do basically the same thing that Kudos, before Richarlison, before the others. Like, he just wanted them to do the same thing with only 20 minutes to go. How hard is that really? Just press your lungs out for the next 20 minutes because these other guys were able to do it for 60 to 70 minutes. I guess they couldn't do that. And Thomas Frank had to learn that lesson, that's what I meant by lessons learned. Is Thomas Frank basically realized some of these guys he can't rely on to do the same job that the previous players were able to.
And at the end of the day, I know, like, you look at the rest of the bench. Would Brennan Johnson have come on and done any better? No.
Debatable.
Wilson Odobert? No. Davies? Certainly not. Austin? No. Byfield? No.
Didn't make any changes at fullback. That also shows that thread.
Look, Fuskovic, maybe there's an argument there. But The reality is, you don't bring on Dom Solanke, you bring on Brennan Johnson. Is it going to be any better? No. You don't bring on Tell, you bring on Udebur, same shit happens. You don't bring on Guerrero Bergval, you bring in Davies, same shit's going to happen. The reality is, the bench is not good enough. Frank went with what he went with today. He was let down. I can guarantee you next time he'll go with Udebur and others, and he'll be let down. The reality is, he didn't have the players to impact the game off the bench. And the reality is, it was such a simple game to impact. All you got to do is come in, hold up the ball, pick up free kicks, slow the game down. And they couldn't do that. And all they done was lost confidence, dropped deeper and deeper to the point where Tell and Solanke were basically playing as centre midfielders. But again, where's your midfielders telling them to go and get pressure on the ball? And that's why I think Frank should be the furthest one from being blamed today. If you didn't bring on them, look at the other options you had to bring on. None of them would have impacted the game either. The reality is, it all comes down to what we didn't do this summer. All the people that told me, be patient, Dave. Be patient. Don't protest till the end of the window. We've already suffered a trophy because of what we didn't do this summer. We've already suffered a trophy because we went and brought in Matisse Tell when we should have went after it with more gusto. We are already paid the price. Thomas Frank is already paying the price because fans are already going after him for what the board didn't do this summer. And there's no excuses for it. Man United went and acted. Chelsea went and acted. Man City went and acted. And even Liverpool, they wanted to double down on the dominance, went and acted already. We refused to do so, and we've paid the price tonight. And the reason why would Daniel Levy go and spend 60 million when the winners of this cup competition only gets 4? Because he doesn't care. The match doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, for us, we care about trophies. And that's another one gone down the Swanee. And I don't want to hear anyone blame Frank. Blame that wonderful chairman of ours and the shit business and bringing in Matisse Tell. But look, I think that's it for today. Same old problems. I think Frank makes us look good defensively, good defensive structure. But again, absolutely toothless going forward from open play. So it is what it is. But guys, lots of positives to take. Like we said, the performance, the cohesion, Romero as captain, kudos, Paulini as some of the new signings we have made, being a positive. But it's the same old problems rearing its head that's holding us back. Daniel Levy, open the fucking checkbook. You bring in 3 more quality players. This team is ready to go and compete. So go and bloody do it. Guys, that's it from us. Give us your thoughts in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts on the game, the positives and negatives. And who do you blame for losing the game later on? Thomas Frank and the substitutions or the substitutions on the board? Let us know in the comment section below. Smash a like. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. See you next time, everybody.